Millionaire CEO's baby cried restlessly in the cafe until a poor waitress did the unthinkable. It was a cold, rainy morning in downtown Boston. The streets glistened under pale light, the swish of tires over puddles echoing through the narrow lanes. A small cafe on the corner, usually a haven for commuters and students, sat nearly empty. The scent of espresso lingered in the air, mingling with the faint smell of wet wool from coats drying by the door. Inside, Ella moved quietly behind the counter. At 25, she looked younger, thin, almost too thin, her pale blonde hair pulled into a messy ponytail. Her apron was faded, a small tear near the pocket, but she wore it neatly. Her hands wiped the counter with slow, steady strokes. The cafe radio hummed soft jazz beneath the gentle patter of rain. Then came the cry, sharp, high-pitched, unrelenting. A baby's wail sliced through the stillness. Ella paused mid-swipe, her head turned toward the sound, brows lifting. In the far corner, a man stood beside a stroller. Tall, sharply dressed in a charcoal coat, hair damp from the rain, he shifted awkwardly. In his arms was a baby, about 10 months old, fists clenched, face red with frustration. The crying intensified. Customers turned, then looked away. A couple exchanged glances. A barista disappeared into the back. No one moved to help. The man bounced the baby gently, whispering close. It only made things worse. The baby, Leo, screamed louder, twisting in his father's arms. Ella wiped her hands and stepped out from behind the counter. She hesitated just a second, then approached slowly, carefully, as if not to startle the child or his father. "Hi," she said softly. "Would you mind if I tried?" The man looked at her, startled. He was striking, handsome in a detached way, but the dark circles under his eyes and the tension in his jaw gave him away. He was exhausted, a man out of his depth. He began. "He doesn't usually cry like this. I don't know what's wrong." "It's all right," Ella said gently. "May I?" He blinked, then nodded. "His name is Leo." Ella extended her arms. Leo screamed harder as she neared, but she didn't flinch. She took him carefully, her touch calm and steady. And then, silence. Leo hiccuped once, then again, and finally, quiet. He nestled into her shoulder, a soft sigh escaping him, his tiny fingers gripping her apron. The cafe seemed to still. Even the rain softened. Jackson Carter, now standing empty-handed, stared as if she'd performed magic. Ella didn't seem to notice. She gently swayed, one hand cradling Leo's back, the other patting a slow rhythm. Tension dissolved. From across the cafe, a woman whispered, "He just stopped crying." Jackson stepped forward, voice low. "How did you do that?" Ella looked up, brushing a stray hair away with her shoulder. "Sometimes. They just need a calm heartbeat." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He could only watch. His son, who had been inconsolable for 20 minutes, was now dozing in the arms of a stranger, a waitress. She rocked gently, sidestepping a nearby table. "Do you want me to hand him back?" she asked, voice hushed. Jackson shook his head, still dazed. "No, not yet." He studied her, the softness in her eyes, the way she moved without hesitation. It wasn't performance, it was instinct, natural care. Ella smiled faintly, unaware, or perhaps too used to being overlooked, to think it meant anything. Leo stirred, then curled closer into her neck. The small sigh he let out made Jackson's chest tighten. Something about this moment felt impossible to explain. But one thing was undeniable. In a world where power and money fixed most problems, this woman had just done what he couldn't. And Jackson Carter, millionaire CEO, could only stand there, silenced, not by business failure, but by the quiet kindness of a stranger in a frayed apron. And for the first time in months, he felt human. The rain had eased by the time Jackson approached the counter to say thank you. Ella was back behind the register, sleeves rolled up, her hands red from wiping tables in the cold. She looked up as he stepped forward, the baby no longer in his arms. "Thank you for earlier," he said, his voice polite but distant. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in." Ella gave a small shrug and smiled gently. "He just needed a little comfort, that's all." Jackson hesitated, then reached into the inside pocket of his coat and pulled out a sleek black business card. He placed it face up on the counter. "My office, if you ever need anything," he said. Then, with a nod, he turned and left, his tailored coat catching the breeze as the door closed behind him. Ella stared at the card for a moment. Jackson Carter, Carter Dynamics, CEO. She blinked, a small crease forming between her brows, but said nothing. She tucked the card under the edge of the register and went back to cleaning. Behind her, a co-worker appeared with wide eyes and a smirk. "Was that who I think it was?" Ella didn't answer. She was used to rich men walking into places like this. She had learned a long time ago that the fancier the shoes, the colder the soul. "Left his card?" her co-worker asked, already pulling out her phone to look him up. "Girl, that's not just anyone. That's the Jackson Carter, tech billionaire, single dad. Looks like a Vogue ad and runs half the apps on my phone." Ella didn't reply. She wiped the same spot on the counter 3 times before realizing she was still holding the cloth. That evening, just before closing, the bell above the door jingled again. Ella looked up, expecting a straggler needing one last caffeine fix. Instead, it was him, alone. He approached without the usual stiffness of a man who was used to being served, but his presence still filled the space like a gust of cold air. "I hope I'm not bothering you," he said. Ella set down the dish rag. "You're back." He nodded. "I didn't get your name earlier." Ella, he repeated softly, as if testing it. "I came to ask you something, and I understand it might sound odd." She folded her arms lightly, waiting. "My son Leo doesn't settle with anyone, not even his nanny. But with you," he calmed down almost instantly. Ella's brow lifted, cautious. "I'm wondering if you'd consider being with him, not full-time, just part-time, a few hours a week. I'd pay very well." Ella shook her head. "I'm not a nanny, and I don't really get involved with—" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "People who live in a different world."